Recently, as you guys know, oil price and oil industry is one of the biggest topics in the entire world. People has raised a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts about this. And in this video, I'm going to share exactly what I know about it, the oil prices and why it matters right now. So let's start from the beginning. In February 28, 2026, US and Israel started war against Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz was blocked. So what that basically means is that the 20% of the entire world's oil supply was blocked because the Middle East that normally moves about 20 million barrel of oil every day was blocked, and that's about 20% of the entire world's supply. And what this happened is that tankers stopped going through, so Gulf countries had to cut production fast. Oil prices jumped hard. Brent crude went up from around $70 per barrel before the strike to over $100 and even hitting $119 to $126 at one point. Right now, it is still high around $89 and $99 to $110 and has been there for quite a while, which is quite concerning. But this is old news. Let me get on to what's happening right now. Well, the biggest thing is that the mess actually hits Asia the worst because they have decided that they have to cut off some supplies to certain areas, and they have decided that it was Asia. Why? Because there's already not enough production and supply in the market, so clearly you have to sacrifice where you want to supply your oil to. And countries like India, Pakistan, and the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Bangladesh imported almost all their oil through that strait. Up to 80-90% of Asia's oil come from that way. What this means is that they have tiny emergency stocks, some with like 2-3 weeks of reserves and thin government budget, so fuel prices spike fast, meaning a lot of these Asia countries relied strongly on this Middle Eastern oil. And now that it is blocked, these Asian countries don't have a lot of supply of oil. Like they don't have a lot of reserve of oil. What this means is that now their supply is cut off and their reserve is only left with 2 to 3 weeks. And that's really horrible because basically in 2 or 3 weeks time, the country is going to almost completely run out of oil, or they're going to change an alternative, but it's not going to be fast enough. What that's going to lead to is a shortage of supply, and when there's a shortage of supply, it's going to cause inflation. And basically, Cambodia saw the world's biggest jump with a petrol up to 68%, and diesel up over 60 to 70% in just weeks. Do you understand how that means? That's more than half the previous price added onto oil, and it's only been weeks, not months. Vietnam had a 50% rise. In India, it's worse. Gas crisis is the worst crisis in India in decades, right? They imported about 60% of cooking gas, with 90% coming through the strait. So factories cut output, restaurants struggled to cook, and government had to redirect supplies from businesses to homes to stop panic buying, which is ridiculous. What I'm trying to say is that they stop giving it so much to business and give it to home supplies. What it's going to do is that businesses are going to struggle as well. So these businesses are going to slow down just to make sure that people are not panicking. So Pakistan and Bangladesh, just so that they could import their oil, has done a lot. Closed schools and university, turn off lights for holidays, rationed fuel, and even sent troops to guard the depot. What this means is that higher cost of fuel, food transport, and fertilizers means that everybody's everyday prices are rising fast because the export is more expensive, which naturally the suppliers don't want to make the export more expensive. So they make their product more expensive so that the retail buyers are the one receiving the actual inflation, right? And what this going to do is that it's going to be hitting poor families the hardest. Supply chains got jammed because shipping costs exploded and goods got stuck or had to reroute. Reroute is always going to cost more because it's probably further and it's probably not as convenient as before. All this is slowing growth and pushing inflation higher, with risk of recession or stagflation, which stagflation is the meaning of when high inflation plus slow growth, which is basically inflation plus recession equals stagflation. So the risk of recession or possibly stagflation is coming, or even hyperinflation, inflation, because in a few months, if the Federal Reserve head of Federal Reserve Jerome Powell steps down, the new guy, he might just lower interest rates and spike inflation, which might cause hyperinflation. Well, now I'm going to get to my next point, which is why is China actually able to contain it so well? Why is China able to do better than other countries, right? It's not just about money, it's about planning. So China is handling it way better than the neighbors in Asia because they are buying cheaper oil from Russia and even the US. Tapping their giant stockpile can cover 3 to 4 months of their oil. So unlike other countries, they don't have 2 or 3 weeks. They have 3 to 4 months worth of imports that's already ready. And they are also planned. Planned for this by building pipelines that skip the strait. Basically, they have pipes that pumps in the oil to the country instead of having it import physically. Yeah. So no big panics or blackout whatsoever. And also because China knows how to diversify where they buy the oil, predicting that there could possibly be a crisis like this that could happen in the future, so that they won't lose every supplier for one big source, which is oil. But now moving on to how the US is doing. Right now, US is actually surprisingly one of the biggest oil suppliers in the entire world, despite the fact that they don't like selling their own oil that is planted in their country. Because, in the past they were selfish, but also in the past, we have known that whenever there is some sort of oil crisis, the US will come out and supply oil. So that's what they're doing. So America is now actually the net oil exporter, so higher world prices actually brings extra money into the US and the companies and the jobs in US. Gas at pump went up about 50 cents per gallon, but not in a way where it's gonna crush the entire economy like the things that are happening in Asia right now. So the quick comparison between China and the US is that China uses a huge reserve and smart deals to ride out of the storm with almost no immediate pain. Basically, whenever there is a problem, they always have a contingency plan, which is good for them. And the US gets money boost from selling more oil. Both are winners comparing to the struggling countries in Asia, clearly. But of course, there's more to compare about the economy regarding China and US right now. Even just about the oil, there's a lot to talk about already, but that's not what I'm going to talk about or focus on in this video. But if you do want me to talk about that, please comment down below and I'll try to make that video if you're interested. Now, so how does this actually affect the economy overall, right? Expensive oil raises costs everywhere, transport, plastic, farming, which pushes up prices and can slow factory spending. If it lasts, it risks a stagflation like I mentioned just now. So the question that most people will be asking themselves now is, what is next? What's going to happen, right? Well, online analysis from Goldman Sachs just raised their 2026 price forecast because this is the biggest supply shock in years. The US Energy Department sees Brent averaging around $91 in the second quarter of the year. Brent is basically a short form of saying the price of the global oil, right? The average price of oil in the entire world. And they see it averaging $91 in the second quarter, which is from April to June. And basically, but others warn it could stay over 100 or even hit 120 if the closure drags on for months. Many experts says that normal shipping through the strait is still months away. Basically, recovering from using that specific river near the Middle East is gonna take a long time to recover. That's what they're saying. And basically they think the price is gonna stay up for longer. And that's bad, clearly, right? And even if fighting stops, if the closure drags on, we could see global inflation and slower world growth? Well, in my opinion, I think that the war is really hard to stop right now. I mean, clearly Trump wants to stop it, but at the same time, he's kind of caught in a chokehold. Like, he is between a rock and a hard place. So basically, he can't move much. He doesn't have much mobility, and he cannot do anything he wants anymore. And because of that, he's gonna struggle to even recover from this, which is why this is much more harder to the economy is now a lot harder to predict than what we have previously. Moving on, the US military pressure might reopen it sooner. Prices could drop back down to $70, $80, and this whole world crisis, right, will speed up countries switching to electric cars and renewable cars. Some extra information is that why China is not suffering as much as other countries, because actually China has the most amount of EV in the world. Electrical vehicles. What that means is that basically they don't have to rely so much on petrol comparing to other countries, because they have a lot of renewable energy sources, which is why I think after this situation, many countries will push forward for a clean energy future. Seriously, because they have struggled enough and they're gonna move on to this. And this is why China is ahead of the world. I know, America has Tesla, whatever, but actually what you don't know is that actually China has the most electrical vehicles in the world, and it's not just Tesla. A lot of them are China brands. And short term, poor Asian nations feel the real pain, but China and US stays mostly okay. In a few months, things should calm down, but we just have to wait and see, because now it is harder than ever to predict what's gonna happen, because there is a war. And not just that, there's a lot of variables. Just the fact Donald Trump is already one huge variable. I mean, to be honest, his mouth is able to change a lot more about the economy than what many actual factors can do in the entire world, just because he can take actions on certain stuff. Well, that's it from this video actually. If you enjoyed this learning journey with me and you want to watch the next one, or you want me to talk about any topic down below, you can comment down below and let me know. I do want to know what you're interested in, and I also want to learn for myself. So I hope I can see you in the next one. Bye.